All right. Good evening, wrestling fans. This is Mack Bolen, and I'm here with Rob Sherrill, and this is going to be our last weekly podcast for the high school season. Hopefully this summer, maybe have some selected podcasts with some special guests, but we're going to go ahead and obviously recap Dual Team State. And for those of you who were able to subscribe to it and watch it, I hope you enjoyed it. I'll speak about it a little later. We had some issues, but start off. We'll start with Class 1A, which kind of pretty much went the way we figured it would.
Yeah, we're 8 for 8 in terms of ranked teams winning at the. I guess it's the Grossinger Motors Arena now.
Yeah, right. A new name, Grossinger Motors Arena.
down in Bloomington. Aurora Christian, and it's of course its second year as a program, won the title over Vandalia, which I thought had a real good chance to get to the finals this year, and they did. Don't let the closeness of the final score over Belleville-Altoff fool you. They had they had 5 pins and a forfeit, and it was 39 to 26 with 2 matches left and 2 forfeits. Probably would have lost them anyway, but still, since Chase Biddle was one of them, but they did get past Belleville-Altoff in the semifinals. Belleville-Altoff beat Erie in the quarterfinals. The other match in the between ranked teams in the quarterfinals. And Aurora Christian actually had its toughest match, as we probably would have guessed,
right,
in the semifinals against Coal City. That was a match that actually was pretty close through 9, with Aurora Christian only leading by a score of 21-18 after 106, which was the 9th match of the duel. And then they went on to win 4 of the last 5, with Cameron Johnson again beating Alex Friddle for the 3rd time this year. 3 wins, all by 2 points. It was 7-5 this time, and that pretty much that was a match that Coal City really needed in order to stay in it, and Johnson won it for Aurora Christian. So that pretty much the story of that one. And over on the other side, in the Vandalia Belleville-Altoff match, it was a match that Altoff only led once after Danny Brownagle got a fall in the 4th match at 160. Belleville-Altoff had a 12-9 lead at that point, but 3 pins and a forfeit in the next 5 matches for Vandalia. Pretty much put it away for them, and Dakota Gasaway moved up a weight to 120, got a 20-second fall, and that clinched the match and a trip to the finals for Vandalia.
Kind of a point to be made here. Belleville-Altoff is a team that where they're good, they're really good, obviously. Right. But they don't, in a dual meet format, they really don't have the depth.
They do have some holes.
Yeah, absolutely. And those are the kind of things, and we talk about this a lot, about the difference between an individual tournament and a dual meet tournament. And Belleville-Altoff is a perfect example of a team that would excel in a tough individual tournament, but because of their holes, have a problem in dual meet formats.
And again, it's just another reason that it's so important to somehow separate the individual from the duel in the state series, just because of the fact that some pretty good teams, because you're asking their basketball team to play a football game for them, are just not making it as far as they should. But
right.
The two Vandalia and Belleville Aldoff did wrestle at Abe's Rumble.
Yes.
And Vandalia won at that time, pretty much in the same way that they won this match. So really not a surprise that they came out on top again. I think it is worth noting that 6 of the 8 teams that made the 1A Elite 8 did wrestle at Abe's Rumble. So it's certainly a
very good point. And I wanted to actually, that's something
that just shows how important an event that has become on the 1A schedule.
And actually, before we, that's something I want you to actually expound on. Talk about Abe's Rumble, and like you mentioned, and the teams that had success there, and that also had success in the team sectionals and dual team series.
Well, sure. And one of the teams that did not wrestle, that did not wrestle there, that made the Elite 8, IC Catholic, even though Joey Bianchini is going to be gone, they are in the field for next year. They're sold on the event. So
absolutely,
I think we're going. So it's a 40-team event. There's a waiting list. So it's a situation where one or two teams are going to be able to get in a year, and that's about it. But certainly, as I said, all but IC Catholic and Aurora Christian were in the field, and Coal City made the finals of that event.
Yeah,
and Vandalia also finished high. So 3 of these teams finished in the top 8 in the event. So certainly, it's those 10 matches or 9 matches over the course of 2 days, were very very important team building experiences for these teams.
Absolutely, and we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get on. And before we move on to 2A, I want to note something here that was kind of a huge coincidence. After I got done calling the 3A state tournament, and I went to dinner at the Outback there in Normal, and I'm sitting there, and in walks the entire Aurora Christian team, coaches, wrestlers, parents, and I just happened to wander over there. Obviously, I saw them all. I saw them wearing their stuff and their medals, and I came over and I said, "Hey guys, great job!" And 2 of them right away said, "Oh wow, we recognize your voice. You're Mack Bolen. You do the podcast with Rob Sherrill." I said, "Yeah," and it turned out that a whole lot of them actually watched this.
Well, good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, and one of the wives actually said, "Oh, yeah. Well, when it comes on, my husband, turns everything off and makes us all watch and listen."
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
then on top of that, to make an even bigger coincidence, the 170-pounder for Aurora Christian, Alex Knopf, turns around and says, "Oh, Mr. Bolen, I know your son." And I looked at him like, "What?" And he says, "Well, yeah, I mean, from Cohen's Judo, and I travel out to the Jason Morris Judo Center, and I go out there for a summer." And I looked at him, and then I saw the backpack that said USA Judo on it, and evidently he's a judo guy who got into wrestling.
Cool.
And it was a great evening. I had a great conversation. There were great people. They gave high props to the podcast, and really kind of made my night after a long day. So I have to give a special shout out to Aurora Christian, and obviously, Justin Perch, who, for those of you who don't know, is the brother-in-law of Izzy Martinez and has done a phenomenal job of basically creating a first-class program, which, what was it, didn't exist 2 years ago?
Yeah, they found themselves a home, and they made the most of it.
Absolutely. Great job. So moving on to Class 2A again, we pretty much, it was Washington. We knew.
And, of course, it was Washington, and winning in the finals over Cahokia, which, it's hard to believe that a team with that level of talent could look so bad as in the early part of the season as they did.
Yeah.
But they certainly showed up when it counted, and I think the win over Glenwood, which was a kind of a toss up match. In fact, they had to win the last three to erase a 25-20 deficit and come back and win that match. After they had Glenwood had won 6 of the first 11, so that was a toss up. And I thought Rochelle would give Oak Forest quite a run, but they certainly I don't know I'm not sure what weight they started at, but looking at some of these other duels, it looks like they started at 32.
Yeah, they started 132, then 138, then 145.
Yeah, they started 132, which means Rochelle got out to a 19-0 lead.
Yeah, and
actually led 37-10 before they forfeited the final 4 weights.
Yeah,
in a 37-34 win, but. Rochelle's schedule really is what showed up for them there. And, then they were no match for Cahokia. Not many, really nobody but Washington is right now. But again, that was a situation where, the Rochelle's in the heart of Northern Illinois Big 12 country, and their schedule reflected that. And the other side, St. Rita, did manage to get by Antioch in the most competitive quarterfinal on that side.
Yes, it was.
I think I'm hoping that Mike Boyd has a little bit more respect for the rest of 2A than maybe he would have in some of our earlier conversations. But, Antioch is an experienced team that's
they're good, yeah.
And obviously, in fact, they led 21-9 after 7 matches, but the upper weights really did it for St. Rita. Yeah. They had a major decision at 195, and then back-to-back, a couple of pins from George Western at 220, a forfeit at 285, which has been a problem for Antioch all year, and then another pin at 106 gave them a lead that they never lost, even though they split a couple of pins in the next couple of matches. But
and St. Rita wrestles a Chicago Catholic League schedule, so their schedule's brutal.
And then in the Washington Marion Central match, Washington did forfeit a couple of weights, but they did. But it was a 23-13 match after 8 before Washington actually basically put it away with their upper weights, with Gabe Robinson starting it off with pin at 220, and then Jace Punky, the state champion, getting a fall in 28 seconds.
Yeah.
And Henriksen and Kate putting it away at 106 and 113. And of course, that wound up being Washington's toughest match in the quarterfinals, and they went on to win the semifinals and the finals easily.
Right. And then going to Class 3A, we kind of got the finals matchup we figured we would based on the, the way the seedings, the P draw, so to speak, led us to. Mount Carmel, unfortunately, one of our better teams, got waxed in the team sectional. Looking at the quarterfinals, the Montini Marmion Academy duel you thought might have been a little bit closer, but really wasn't. Oak Park River Forest, Manuka. And it was funny because both teams came out with these really bright orange T-shirts. And you look at it, and it was almost blinding if you looked into the stands and seeing that. And that was pretty much a blowout. The Providence Catholic team managed to extend Coach Healy's season and let him go out, and I'll talk about that when we get to semifinals. Actually, one of the best duels in Class 3A was Huntley versus Glenbard North. And Huntley, here's a team, the new coach there, Trotter, done a great job. And I actually sent an email.
Lost big to Glenbard North in December.
Right, but came back and for the state tournament, flipped the script. And they were able to beat out Glenbard North and advance. And this is their first trip to the Elite Eight, and they managed to finish fourth place. Great job. I put a bid in for them. I contacted the Clash director, Steve Elwood, and he sent an invite to them. I think they would be a great addition to the Clash. And like we talk about Abe's Rumble, there's another great tournament for teams. If you want to get that experience in a dual meet format, that's one of the places to go to get it.
And actually, they did lead 35-19 after with two matches left, and forfeited two out.
Forfeited. Yep.
Certainly, but they got a big win right at the start with Gannon Kasowski beating Juan Revere at 138, and then and of course big wins at 160 from Ferrati, who tech-falled Anthony Mare.
Yep.
And Quiro's majoring Pennington, two matches that I'm sure Glenbard North was not expecting to give up 9 points on, and that really set Huntley up well. They had an 18-6 lead at that point, and even
lost your sound. Lost your sound, Rob.
Oh, sorry.
Yep, there we go. Yeah, and both those guys, Ferrante and Quiros, had a good tournament. They wrestled well throughout the dual team state. They were really good. Very impressive.
They had quite a nice late run there, and of course, the schedule they wrestle helps a great deal in that regard.
And a good up and coming program. And let's face it, folks, Huntley's going to be around for a while. They're good. They're well coached. They have an excellent feeder program. Tremendous upside.
So I always have to give teams credit for wrestling it out, and I have to give Montini and Marmion credit for wrestling it out at in a quarterfinal. Despite the score, they went all the way to the end with all of their guns, and looking at some of these other matches with as many as 4 forfeits at the end, which is something, sorry, folks, I'm just never going to be a big fan of.
Yeah.
And you don't have to like me for it, but I'm going to continue to speak out against it. I give Montini and Marmion an A+ for wrestling out all 14 matches in that duel, regardless of what happened. And even though
Right.
it was 52-10 going into that last match, Bernowski and Calloway was certainly entertaining.
Oh yeah, it was a good match, and
honestly,
Manuka and Oak Park, they didn't forfeit out until basically the last match, and Manuka actually even lost a team point on an unsportsmanlike, even though the score was extremely lopsided anyway at that point.
Right, and that's another one.
Yeah,
you got to give both coaches credit for that one. But
now the semifinals,
amazing that Mayora beat Trevor Chumbley, and it still didn't make much difference.
Yep. And in the semifinals now, when you had a lot of forfeits at the end of both of those matches, I kind of get it, because they wanted to just, rest their guys, both Montini and Oak Park River Forest, because, they headed into the final, which we anticipated. Oak Park River Forest.
Although once again, I will give Montini and Providence credit. They wrestled it all the way to the end, and in fact, Providence in all their matches wrestled it all the way to the end. So that's I will give that credit all day long.
Yep. Now we ended up with pretty much the final we figured, but on paper, particularly if you looked at the head-to-head between Oak Park River Forest and St. Edward, and Montini versus St. Edward, you would say that was going to be a blowout in the finals. But again, we talk about the difference between an individual tournament and a dual team match, where sometimes, things can change. And at the beginning of it, and, to dissect it, I was sitting there watching, and at first it kind of looked like that's the way it was going to go. Starting at 145, Montini, pin. 152, pin. 160, decision. Fisher wrestled pretty well. Not as well as he did at the Cheesehead, where he only lost 3-2 to Ortiz, but again, kept it to a decision, not bonus points. Oak Park didn't get on the board until 170 pounds, where Middlebrooks won a decision over Geraci.
Right.
But then you turn around and Swire pin at 182, and then Christensen pin at 195, and you're looking at a 27-3 score. And then all of a sudden, bang, Oak Park went on they get a fall at 285, a decision at 106.
Yeah, Tech at 220.
Tech at 220, which was huge. And then, with Ragusan leading, and then all of a sudden Okansanya scoring, and then all of a sudden with a fall, and then another fall at 120, and bang, Oak Park's in a 29-27 lead. And speaking about the importance of individual matches in a dual team format, one of the key matches was at 106, where you had Rundle facing Vasquez. And a lot of people, in the stands were booing during the match. Rundle won by a 6-2 decision. But let's face it, Vasquez went out there and he did what he was supposed to do. He wrestled conservatively. He kept the match from bonus points. And when you get on to the rest of the duel, the importance of that is the 3 points when it was 29-27 versus, let's say he goes out there and makes a mistake, gets pinned, and now it's 32-27. And you go on to the major decision by Melendez and then the fall by Woods. and it made the 138-pound match irrelevant. Whereas
Well,
Oak Park,
of course, that's what dual meet wrestling is all about.
And Oak Park had Madrigal ready to go at 138.
Dual meets are all about damage control.
Absolutely, and getting points where you can take them. Now, if when I heard people yelling and screaming, 6-2, if you want to blame somebody, blame the referee. But, he did, and Montini did exactly what they needed to do to keep a match close and not let it get out of hand. Now, another thing I want to mention.
Minimize the other team's points. And
absolutely.
If the referee's not going to make them wrestle, then,
absolutely
take advantage of it.
And he did the smart thing. He wrestled conservative. He wrestled smart. He didn't get into trouble. And again, had something bad happened and you cough up those points, if it's a 4 or 5 point difference, does Madrigal major or tech Mayora? Hard to say, probably not. But why take the chance on it coming down to that match, when you don't have to? And one of the things I saw in the Melendez and Hernandez match, and Hernandez, the freshman for Oak Park River Forest, who, went out in the second week of the season, didn't come back until team sectionals. He got the major, but when he went over to shake the Oak Park coach's hand, they didn't just shake his hand. They all gave him a big hug. It was such a nice show of mutual respect between opponents that you really appreciate in that kind of setting where, okay, he's wrestling on a screwed up ankle. He came out there to get the win for his team. He got the major decision, came close to killing your chances of winning the duel, but the Oak Park coach is still like, hey, great guy,
Yeah, I think, and I think that that's kind of what I was going to say. I think it's a situation where they understood what Melendez has been through for the last 6 weeks, and we're all in the end, in the final analysis, we're all on the same side here.
Oh yeah. And then Woods went out and did what Woods does. He got a tech fall in the finals against Bolivar, and he pinned him in this one. And so it made the last match irrelevant. And the Oak Park coaches said, 8 points, it's out of reach. Why bother? Yeah. And Madrigal, he had his contraption off his elbow. He had it in a pressure bandage and that, but why risk it? He's going to Oklahoma already. Bang. Yep. So that, the 3A, it kind of finished like we like. The duel was a lot more competitive than looking in, that you might have thought it would have been. And it actually made for a great final in Class 3A.
Yeah, no, it certainly was. There certainly was plenty of drama there. I mean, we all know that it's a sport of momentum, and when you win 5 in a row like that, you start thinking, well, yeah, they got Melendez, yeah, they got Woods, yeah, they got Mayora, but who knows, right?
Yeah. And
you've already won the last 5 matches in a row,
right?
It gives you some hope.
And I find it interesting because talking to a couple of the other rankers, Josh Lowe over there on Intermat and Willie Saylor over there on Flow Wrestling, at the beginning of the season where Oak Park wasn't even ranked, and they had Montini as low as 10 or 12th. And I think Willie Saylor made a great comment, when I chatted with him, and he said, well, I got to be honest, he said both Oak Park and Montini vastly exceeded our November expectations. And I would say, yeah, absolutely. Montini finished 4th in the Ironman and then blew out the field to win the Clash, wins the Cheesehead, goes into that meet, the dual meet at Wyoming Sem. And even though they lost the dual meet to Wyoming Sem, they come back to beat #1 Bergen Catholic. They made a great statement. And Oak Park was a team that, well, let's see, you lose one of your best guys, Madrigal, within the first week of the season. You lose another promising freshman, Hernandez, in the beginning week of the season, and go on to win Rex Whitlatch, finish 5th at the Clash, beat a ton of nationally ranked teams, finish 2nd at the Cheesehead, finish above a bunch of nationally ranked teams, to include Apple Valley in that, and then win your home tournament. And the interesting thing to note in that is they won that small tournament, which was about 8 to 10 teams, with 209 points over Christian Brothers of Missouri, which is a nationally ranked team, which finished with 166 points. And that's, given
Christian Brothers wound up winning the Class 4 in Missouri over Park Hill.
I saw beat Park Hill out. And there's another team that,
but again, they're sort of the Montini of Missouri. They have, or I should say, or maybe more accurate is they're the Belleville-Aldoff of Missouri.
They've got 4 or 5 really great individuals.
Where they're great, but
they're
they have
great.
A lot of holes.
Yep. But
they had several dual meet losses this year.
Oh, they did, and I just look at that, they finishing above Park Hill though, which, again, beginning the season, they were up in the top 20.
Right. But again is the reason that CBC just is not going to make my top 25 as they're constructed. I know some of the other guys like them.
Right.
But,
a few years back,
I can't rank a team with losses to every teams that they have losses to.
Yeah, and a few years back we saw the same thing with Blue Springs in Missouri as well, which had 4 really outstanding wrestlers and pretty much nothing else.
So that it's certainly Oak Park definitely is a team that with the schedule they wrestle, if they do anything against it, they're going to get some they're going to get some notoriety, and obviously they did more than enough with it this year. Even though they don't have the big names that we've seen from past Oak Park River Forest teams, they're pretty much a team. In that regard, I think they're a lot like St. Ed's, a team with a lot of no names. No Madrigal, he's out injured, and really Rundell is the only name that they have, and he's just at the point where he's just getting there.
Oh, and he's only a sophomore.
But the whole was greater than the sum of the parts with teams like Oak Park River Forest. They've they certainly proved that this year.
And Montini, of course, did a phenomenal job. They're looking forward to next year. Going to Class A now, is Aurora Christian still going to be the team to beat next year, because they've got a lot upside?
Of course, as they probably, but as things stand, of course, only one more year in 1A.
Yeah, probably. And we know now, from what I heard,
another trophy, and they're gone. They're in 2A.
Oh yeah. And because they're a private, of course. And from what I've heard with enrollment, Coal City might be in 2A next year.
Well, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see which direction the cutoff goes. I mean, 1A lost Rock Falls this past year.
Yep.
And it's just a question of whether it goes up or whether it goes down. If it if we have more charter or small schools or whatever saying they're going to start wrestling programs, whether they do or not,
right,
is going to be a big question.
Sure.
And but of course, if you have more of those, it's going to push, it's going to push the line, farther north, which is more likely to keep a school like Coal City in the classification.
Right. Now, 2A, interesting, Washington again, third year in a row, they've three team state championships. Based on their losses, are they still going to be able to maintain?
I think so. I mean, that, Brian Medlin left a system in place that, that he developed, side by side with Nick Miller.
And Miller's done a great job.
Nick Miller isn't going anywhere, and neither is.
No, they'll still be, but I'm wondering, are they going to be able to be the dominant force again in 2A next year?
Yeah, I mean, Brian is the name that everybody talks about, but he didn't do it by himself. He and Nick have been a team throughout this entire, process of building the program.
So 3A is going to be interesting too next year.
I certainly see that continuing.
Okay, so 3A next year is going to be interesting. Both Montini and Oak Park River Forest are going to take some graduation losses. But I still see both of them as being the teams to beat next year. Now, Mount Carmel is an up-and-comer. I'll say this. Mount Carmel's in a good position.
They're very young. The question is, a lot of their guys need to become state caliber in a hurry.
Yeah.
And we'll see if they succeed in doing that. The guys that got out of Hinsdale Central were the guys that you would expect to get out. Lower weight guys, middleweight guys. The rest of the lineup, they have some work to do.
Right. I still see, Huntley as an up and comer, and they're going to continue to get better.
Yeah, they'll be fine.
They're a good team. Providence. Nice to see that Healy went out, third place. And one of the things that I thought was really neat in their semifinal duel was sending out Jacob Lindsay, and he got the clinching win. A kid who's been injured the whole season.
Right.
106-pound state champ last year. This year, couldn't even make it to the finals in the Catholic League Championship. Battles injuries. They send him out there, and he gets that clinching win to put them in that third-place match. And, it was kind of a nice moment, not just for Coach Healy, but for, a kid who had a season that was an absolute disaster for a quality wrestler. And obviously, we'll see him again next year. But that was one of those nice moments in the 3A tournament.
Right. Yeah. He was just always all year, even when he was he was always in the wrong weight class. 113 and 120 were just, where he was. We're just too strong to be competitive. Especially when you tried to shake off the rust of being out for an entire season.
And still wearing a whole shoulder rig, the whole time when you are wrestling.
Right.
So going into next year, it's going to be really interesting. Again, talking about 3A, because both teams, take some losses. Sandburg's still in a rebuilding process. Marmion Academy, which was totally snake bit this year, had a great individual state series. Be interesting to see where they come out next year. And Mount Carmel's still on the rise. Just off the top of my head, let me think. Montini's going to lose, obviously, Luann, Melendez, and Woods.
Yeah, they're going to lose guys that have really carried them in big meets this year, and it's going to be interesting to see.
Now,
Is Christensen the guy that's going to step up next year? Is Ortiz the guy that's going to step up next year?
Ortiz now, and this is an interesting story now. Ortiz, I believe, is a fifth-year senior.
Okay.
He started at Marmion Academy, and I don't know the whole lowdown on this. There was an injury, and he repeated a year, so I don't know the deal on that, and I don't want to speculate yet.
And he may be done, but
they still have Styles. Obviously, they have a great freshman in Nine Vasquez. They still have Peterson.
Yeah. Styles made big strides this year.
Absolutely.
But I thought, I don't know. I think some of these other guys have something to prove. I mean, Ragusin certainly didn't win every big match he wrestled this year. And, so I think he has something to prove too.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I think the upside on him is good. I think that, he finished runner-up 106, runner-up 113. Knowing Izzy, I think he's going to really get him prepped for next year. He's a good kid. I think maybe confidence. I mean, I don't know.
He had a great off season.
Great technical wrestler, and
so I was a little bit surprised that it didn't necessarily carry over to this regular season and some of the bigger matches all the time. Although,
I would note about Christensen.
On the other hand, on the other hand, the experience that worked out so well for Ragusin also worked out well for Noah Certain.
Yeah,
and it wound up paying off for him, seeing him win some of the big matches that he won this year.
I would note about Christensen
when you have these guys all in cadet and junior national training, doing what they do all spring and summer, not everybody can win in February. So they get. But on the other hand, the guys that you're losing to are probably the guys you were working out with, over those months.
Well, I would note about Styles, for instance, at 145 pounds. Beginning of his season, he was totally off the radar. He didn't make state last year. But, we look at what he did at the Ironman. We look at what he did at the Catholic League Championships, even though he lost the semifinals match. But then he turns around and wins the state tournament. And then you take a guy like Christensen. Again, beginning of the season, he wasn't by no means did anybody think that Peter Christensen was going to win state at 195. And on top of that, I'll say this. When we talk about the dual team strategy and the dual team shuffling, there's a guy that for Montini was able to bump up to 220 pounds and get wins in crucial dual meets. And I mean, he's a huge part, even though we don't think of him like Luan or Melendez or Woods. But there's a guy who was a critical part of that Montini lineup during the season, particularly in dual meets, who came through big at 220 pounds when they were able to bump him up against St. Edward, against Bergen Catholic. And he's coming back. McNichols at the heavyweight was kind of, to me, an enigma. At the beginning of the season, I honestly thought he wrestled better than he did at the end of the season.
He's a decent dual meet heavyweight.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And that's pretty much what you could say. Now, let me go back to Christensen for a minute. I mean, Christensen's not a nobody. Christensen made both cadet national finals, lost to Ashton Sharp, who's another nationally ranked kid.
Right.
And You know, it's
well, I
just,
don't mean a nobody, but what I'm saying is when the folk season
I didn't have
started.
I had him, I didn't have Whittingham, but
Yeah.
I had him in the top two. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's not he's certainly one of their leaders for next year. No doubt
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they still have him. They still have Styles. Very impressed with like I said, again, the freshman 9 Vasquez. You know, they've got Bernosky too, you know, in the St. Edward duel. Who on earth would have picked Bernosky to beat Hepner?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
you know,
again, dual meet momentum there.
There you go. There you go. So looking forward, it's going to be very interesting next year. And of course, we have the whole off season now to look at. Team Illinois will always represent, you know, we talk at the schoolboy, the cadet, and the junior duels, and then Fargo.
I don't think there's any doubt that there will be another 80 or 90 All-Americans this year.
Oh yeah, so. Yeah. And we'll probably win, you know, a bulk of those 9 possible, you know, or 6 possible championships between schoolboy, junior duels in freestyle and Greco-Roman and Fargo.
Right.
So I'm just going to say, for everybody who's been listening and watching, I hope you enjoyed our weekly coverage. Looking forward to doing it again next year. This is going to be our last weekly podcast for this season. By all means, give us your feedback. And if there's anything more you want us to cover, if there's something else you want us to add, your criticism, your accolades, whatever, by all means, post it. And during the off season, I'll probably try and come up with a few special podcasts. Would really like to get Justin Perch on here from Aurora Christian, Toronto from Huntley, some of the other people. So we'll see what we can do.
Sounds like you got some good feedback last weekend.
Yep, we did. So
gotta plug it and say thanks where we get it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you know, like I said, it was kind of interesting when people say, "Oh yeah, we know you. We listen to you guys all the time." So
well, thanks, Aurora Christian. We appreciate it.
Yep, thank you very much. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. Been a great season, and we'll be back again next year, just like we did this year. And again, hope everybody enjoyed it. For me and Rob, you know, we do this to promote the sport. We ain't getting paid for this. We're doing this for fun. So take care. God bless, and we'll catch you guys all later. Have a good night.